So today we're going to be talking about the Sequential Circuit's Prophet-600 synthesizer. We're going to talk a lot about what it's got under the hood and what we did to make it right, because this keyboard was pretty sorry. Let's talk about it. I'm Roland Bettis for the Alamo Music Sound Lab. Be sure to hop on YouTube and click subscribe to our channel. We've got a lot of great videos in the past and we have a lot more coming up in the future. Today we'll be talking about the Sequential Circuit's Prophet-600 synthesizer. It's kind of like the least known sequential synthesizer of the era, but I think it's got a lot of great value, and we're going to show you all about what it can do coming up. Well, you've seen this Prophet-600 before, this exact same Prophet-600, because in every one of our videos, whether it's the guitar videos on the guitar channel or the synthesizer videos that we do here, it's been in the background for a couple of years. It's been standing on its side, leaning up this Yamaha CP right next to me, and it's been in a very sorry state. I just couldn't do it anymore. I couldn't see it looking so sad in that corner anymore. So what I did was I took it downstairs to the basement, took it to my tech lab, and I started going through it piece by piece. I got the keys that were non-functional, I got those working again. There were several pots that were broken, we replaced those. The battery was completely shot, as you probably guessed. So I installed a new battery, and no matter how hard I tried, I couldn't get a SysX data of all the bulk presets into the synthesizer via system exclusive. I also tried the WAV file thing, and that didn't work out too well either. So what I ended up doing was carving out 99 presets of my own. All the presets you're going to hear later on are my own presets, and I really enjoyed diving into the 600. At first glance, it doesn't seem like a whole lot of sequential, right? So when you think about sequential, you might think about the Prophet 5, the Prophet 10, the vintage ones that is, the Prophet T8, or a multitude of other Prophets that came in that 80s era. It's important to note that the Prophet-600 was still pretty groundbreaking for its day. You know, it was one of the first keyboards, if not, I believe it's the first keyboard that actually had MIDI implemented on the back panel. MIDI in and out, and as simplistic as it is, it does the job fairly well for just getting note data transfer to a sequencer or using another keyboard as a controller. So when it first came out, it was priced right, it had some great features, and it did have the look kind of a Prophet 5 panel. But why don't so many people think that it's as strong as a Prophet 5? Well, I own a Prophet 10, by the way, and having owned that Prophet 10, I could tell you that the 600 is really a strong sounding synthesizer. It does have that Dave Smith classic filter design. It's got that really cool envelope section, the dual oscillator thing, the polymod section, which is cool, and it also adds the arpeggiator and a sequencer on it. So when you kind of like divvy it up by sections, it's actually a really strong synthesizer. I think the worst thing that people can gather when first playing a Prophet-600 is that the presets are pretty terrible. And for a lot of players out there, that could be the end-all be-all. You know, if I sit at a keyboard in a music store, if I play a couple of the factory patches and it doesn't grab me, I just kind of move on to another synthesizer. Well, the Prophet-600 is that way. A lot of the presets were really fair at best. What I did notice, though, is that when I was diving into it and I started creating sounds for this particular keyboard, I really fell in love with it. I think it's equally as strong as sculpting as a Prophet 5 or any other really notable synthesizer that would cost double to triple the money. Speaking of which, these can be found pretty easily online, and they have a really low resale value. So if you're looking to add something to your collection, if you're looking to add that Prophet sound, that classic Prophet sound, I mean, this is kind of a no-brainer. I should also note that there's a couple manufacturers out there that do upgrades via a little chip, which you could pop open the panel, click in a chip, and it kind of redoes the operating system. What you get with that is a lot of cool stuff. It'll now lock to external beat clock and MIDI clock. It'll actually redevelop the envelope section to where the envelope is a lot smoother and a lot more musical than what the current onboard envelope section is. For me, those mods are really about that. That's the biggest strong selling point for getting that upgrade. There's also different LFO things and different poly sections. Like for example, you could switch to mono mode and stack it. So the upgrade is a really low price point for getting this Prophet-600 into the new territory, into the new world, if you will, so that you can start to utilize more of it to sculpt your songs and your sounds a lot easier. Just a great synthesizer all the way. On a side note, if you've maybe gone onto some forums and have read about the Prophet-600, you might have found that some of the users out there claim it to be a version of the Prophet T8. A lot of people say that it's stronger and bigger sounding, if not equal or on par to the Prophet T8 synthesizer. And having owned a T8 for a long time, I can tell you that they are very different and they're not very close, or as close as some people say or claim that it is. This is not a Prophet T8. I don't think it'll ever be a Prophet T8, no matter what upgrade is done to it. But if you look at it for what it is on its own, I think it's just a really cool synthesizer that's got a lot of weight. And tonally, that weight is awesome. Let's talk a little bit about what we got on the top panel. We've got the envelope section that we talked about. So you've got your filter envelope, your regular amplitude envelope. You've got your awesome filter section that's switchable between full, half, or off. You do have dual oscillators, and each one has variable waveforms that you could click on and off. Sync mode, which is cool for leads. I love that for leads. And you have your LFO section, which is very basic, right? So you've only got 2 selectors for the shape of the LFO. But again, with these upgrades I was referring to earlier, that can be magnified towards different other kinds of LFO shapes. Polymod section, which is a really fun thing, kind of gets, I don't know how to describe it fully, but it really takes a patch and creates more of a 3-dimensional sound to it. Very cool section right over here. And of course, we've got the arpeggiator and the sequencer. You know, the sequencer is not really that strong. I mean, it's pretty limited and it's pretty clunky and quirky. But with those upgrades, again, I was referring to, you could lock in the sequencer to a MIDI clock. So if you're, say, sequencing in Ableton or Pro Tools or something like that, that sequencer can lock in and so can the arpeggiator. You do have this little membrane touch panel here, which kind of navigates through the different presets. These tend to give out after X amount of time, but and for a while there, you could not find a replacement. There was nobody making replacements for these. Now I'm happy to say that there's a couple of manufacturers that do make the entire membrane panel to be replaced. And replacing it is super easy. It's popping off these 2 knobs, clicking the panel over. There's one ribbon cable that connects to the circuit board. So you slide that into place, and then you fold over, and then you just adhere it to the panel. It's really as simple as that. So it doesn't take a whole lot of tech skills to get this replaced. And if anything is the Achilles heel on this keyboard, it is this membrane panel. Those membrane panels can also range from $50 to $80 online. So if you're looking at buying at one of these and wondering, well, I mean, am I going to have to replace that anytime soon? Maybe, maybe not, but it's cheap enough and it's easy enough to do it. So all in all, a really cool keyboard, a really strong keyboard, and I just can't wait to start getting into playing it. So, I'm glad we brought the synthesizer back from the dead. I'm glad it has so many cool sounds under the hood. I'm glad we got to revisit what the Prophet-600 can really do. It's really a worthy synthesizer, and once you start diving deep into it, although it looks simplistic, it's a really strong synth. Thanks for watching. I'm Roland Perez. This is the Alma Music Sound Lab. Be sure to hop on YouTube and subscribe. A lot of great videos coming up in the future. And check out our website, almamusic.com. Lots of great stuff there as well.